welcome to your Manchester. But first, I've been looking at Chinese New Year. Chinese New Year is an annual 15-day festival in China and Chinese communities around the world. It begins with a new moon that occurs sometime between January 21st and February 20th. But what exactly does this event mean to people? And how are the people of Manchester celebrating it?
Today I prepared two different patterns. So the first one is this one.
Here at Ducey Street Warehouse, Floating Art are hosting a Chinese painting on lanterns workshop. They invited me down to the class to show me why events like these are a brilliant way to celebrate the culture of Chinese New Year.
The lantern is one of quite a special thing in my culture, because we use it for the Lunar New Year. We use it for decoration, so they're actually bringing some meaning like light, something bright for our New Year. Yeah, so we will use it for the Lunar New Year, but we will also use for other festivals, like for example like Moon Festival. So we also call it Mid-Autumn Festival. Yeah, so but for sure, Lunar New Year is one of the important things. And also on the 15th days of Lunar New Year, which is also quite a special day, which is a bit like, we call it Lantern Festival. So some people will also call it Chinese Valentine's. Yeah, so at that day, people will draw something and also write some poem and also some like a question on the lantern, and then like the couples will go together to the park or like the festival, and then they will start to how to say it, like answer the question of the lantern, so they will try to guess what is it talking about. Yeah, so it's like a quite nice event. So for sure, for the Asian people, it already have a meaning which is developed for many years ago. Just like me as a Hong Konger, and also I don't know, maybe as you know, many Hong Kongers moved here recently. So for them, when they see something like that, they will feel like a home feelings. So because they can enjoy these type of activities, still celebrate something they can do at home, but now they come to the different country, they can still try to get better feelings. But also, I think for some other people, they didn't have the habit to celebrate like a Lunar New Year. I think for them, they will still have something quite interesting feeling by learning something new. Just like any single culture, if you want to try to learn a bit more about that, you can actually start with like understand their food or understand what they will celebrate, what is their festival. Yeah, something like this.
There's always been a great connectivity between people and culture.
I feel like we're learning something that maybe relates to Chinese culture and traditions around painting and so on. So it feels like, a fun learning experience, isn't it?
This year is the year of the dragon. Linda Dearsley is a leading Chinese horoscope expert who has recently released a book called 2024 Thrive in the Year of the Dragon, which dives deep into what this zodiac means and what it could bring for people in 2024.
On February the 10th, we have the beginning of the Year of the Dragon. Every year, they believe that a different energy represented by a different animal kind of rules the world, if you like, and influences the world. And so the energy is influenced by the personality of that particular animal. As well as that, they believe that the animal brings with it an element, they call them elements, and this year it is wood. So we call it the wood dragon. The dragon is associated with good fortune, prosperity, expansion, and, all that sort of thing. And the wood element is also linked with growth and expansion and sort of dynamism. So when you put the two together, you should get a very exciting kind of year. The thing about it is it's kind of the energy that is around in the year. It's like the vibe in the air, and people will react to it. And so this is a very strong, powerful energy. So if you're a bold kind of person and you quite like taking calculated risks and you want to increase things, it's going to be a good year for you to do that. And the whole world will be doing that, and maybe going even more towards green energy and that sort of thing, because it is the green dragon, it's the wood dragon this year. What we also did, there are 12 animals in the Chinese New Year, but there are also 5 elements, one of which being wood. That's why it's the wood dragon this year. But because there are 12 animals, they only get a chance to rule the year once every 12 years. So we haven't had a dragon in charge for 12 years. But because each dragon goes through each of the elements, I hope this isn't getting too complicated, it's actually 60 years since the last wood dragon was in charge. The last wood dragon was 1964. And so in the book, I kind of looked back at what was happening in 1964, because the kind of things that were happening then could be the kind of things that will be happening this year.
The celebrations will continue in Manchester and globally with so many different events that really show how important Chinese New Year is to billions of people across the world. Speaking of New Year, if you're a keen gardener, then have a look at this.
Hello, we've come over to our friends at Daisy Nook Garden Centre in Oldham to find out what you should be planting in the garden or in tubs and containers, particularly on balconies. Now you'll start to see bulbs coming through the ground very shortly, if they haven't already appeared, with it being a bit of a mild winter. So if you want things like snowdrops and crocus in the garden, have you left it too late? Well, in fact, what you need to do is to get off to your garden centre or garden suppliers, and you will find pots of planted up bulbs like crocus and things, all these winter, early spring plants, daffodils, things like that. And you can actually use them and plant them out as a sort of started to grow plant. They'll just be coming through the pots. It's also the time to think about summer bulbs, so begonias, gladioli, things like that. You'll find those now available, and they want planting now. So these are the ones that should have been planted out in bulb form last autumn. Really the best time for planting things like daffodils and tulips direct into the ground would have been last November. But as I say, don't worry, you can pick them up already growing in pots like these, and they're ready to plant out. And for what we call summer bulbs, i.e. gladiolis, begonias, and look at some of the colours here, lilies, things like that, then now is the time to buy them and begin to get them in the ground. Now, one of the best value ways to buy bulbs is things like this, where for $7.99 you can fill a bag with bulbs. Think how many you get there, and you can get all the family involved in that, fill in a bag. So there you are, some ideas for planting up this spring.
And finally, Mark has been out and about once again on another fantastic walk in our region.
Hello, for this week's walk we have come to the borough of Oldham, and indeed the town of Oldham, and indeed a particular street, Union Street, which was the main street through the town centre during the Victorian period, and as such has some rather lovely buildings along it. Today it's having a bit of restoration work, and we'll see a few buildings covered in scaffolding and so on as we go along our walk. Oldham itself, well, in the Victorian period there was a mill here for every day of the year, and the name Oldham, well, it was pronounced locally Owldham, and so the owl is the symbol of the borough and the town. Today, perhaps, as I say, a lot of work going on. During the 60s and 70s, when the cotton trade started to decline, the town fell into decline itself. But there's quite a lot of work going on here. So let's have a little walk along Union Street. Behind me, the old library building, and Gallery Oldham, which is the art gallery, is behind that and well worth a visit. The library is actually being turned into an art centre, supposedly having next to it the new Coliseum Theatre eventually, and just further along the road the old Telegraph Office and Post Office, which became the local studies library, and that's going to be included in the grand scheme as well. At the top of this road is Oldham Parish Church. Bill Waddington, who went on to play Percy Sugden, was a choir boy in there. And then the old town hall building, which is now a cinema and has various restaurants. And then we reach one of my favourite buildings, the Oldham Lyceum. The Oldham Lyceum sits right in the heart of Union Street. In fact, just opposite what is now Oldham Central tram stop. And there's the tram. The Lyceum was built as an educational institute. You could take all kinds of classes and kind of better yourself. And it was so successful over the years, it isn't actually one building as it looks today. It's two. You have to look carefully for the join. Now, in the early 1970s, Oldham's Market Hall burnt down. It was a big story at the time. And in fact, plans are afoot to take down its replacement, and a brand new Market Hall is being built just across the road. But if you look in one of the little side streets off Union Street, you're going to find a memory of that, because this lion is a bit charred. And there are two of them stood here, and these actually stood on the top of the Market Hall building, and they collapsed under the weight of the rubble of that fire. But here they stand in a little side street. And across the road is a red brick building. And that building has played probably more police stations in more TV dramas from Scott and Bailey to Coronation Street and beyond than I know of any building in Greater Manchester. Now a walk at the bottom of Union Street and an area known as Mumps. It has its own tram station. It used to have a railway station, and the reason it's called Mumps, not because of illness, but because there was a workhouse here, and workhouse inmates were known as mumpers. Apparently when the first railway was put through, the railway company fell out with the town council, decided to put the station here and christened the place Mumps, and Oldham will be forever associated with the name. Well, that's it for this week's little gentle stroll. I'll see you next time, somewhere completely different.
Thank you everyone for watching. Mark and Belinda will be back next week in our brand new studio. So don't forget to check it out and like and subscribe to Manchester's biggest talk show, where every story counts. Your Manchester.